Steeler Nation. Not many words to describe how we feel right now, but you are tuned to Angry. There it is, Michael. There it is. The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Steelers end the season with a loss to the Bengals, but we had that playoff clinched, and our guest, we'll get to him shortly. Mike, first off, how's everything in South Florida?
Not bad. It's cold everywhere, man. I know that you guys are feeling it in the Berg. You were at the game on Monday. You not only saw a loss, but you froze your ass off. So kind of a, double dagger there, insult to injury. But everything's good. The Steelers are in the dance. So you know what they say, wipe the slate clean. Everybody's 0-0, although the sky is certainly falling. That's for sure, man.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to give this game. I mean, it's like we're due for a win at this point. I don't know if our guests that we're bringing on will agree with that, but over here in Steelerland, I think that we're due for a win. But why don't you tell the great people about our partnership with the people over at DraftKings and how they can put some money in their pocket this football season?
Yeah, say it with me. Playoffs?
Playoffs.
There you go. We're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. There it is. Scoring touchdowns is the key to winning in the what?
Playoffs.
Thank you. And you could score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. If you're ready to place your first bet, do us a favor. Bet on something simple, like a player to score 6. Derrick Henry maybe this weekend. He always gets in the end zone. Who knows? Najee Harris maybe gets in again.
Steelers money line.
Whoa. Now that's not so simple, but fair enough. It's exciting. Go to the app, make your pick. New customers, listen to this. This is the big thing. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use our code 6sports. You bet $5, get 200 in bonus bets instantly. It's absolutely incredible. You see it below our code 6sports, 200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
There you have it. Play by the rules, make yourself some money. Sammy, take it away.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
You know what? Just listening to that, our guest probably has a little bit of nightmares, but that could certainly change in a hurry this weekend as the Steelers get ready to take on the Ravens this Saturday night in wildcard playoff matchup. This guy, we love his podcast, Locked On Ravens. Of course, he's writing over at the Ravens Wire as well. I was lucky to do some work with him this offseason on the NFL draft, and he's been on the podcast before. It is Kevin Oestreicher. Kevin, thanks for hanging with us, man. What's going on?
Hey, guys. Glad to be here. Appreciate you having me back on the show. And look, I think it couldn't be any other way to start off the playoffs, right? You got Ravens Steelers round 3. A lot of uncertainty because, it's the us, we know them mentality for both teams. But this will decide the season series, and this will decide who goes on to the postseason and the wild card divisional round.
Yeah, you talk about uncertainty. That's a word I think that is very fair in regard to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who come in cold. Your Ravens are entering hot, obviously won 4 in a row. You have that any given Sunday mentality. You talked about, you kind of throw the records out the window to a degree. But Las Vegas does not feel the same right now. The Ravens opened as like an 8-point favorite. I think it's scaled all the way up to 10. What are your thoughts on that? Are you guys in Baltimore, out here thinking, all right, dominant, easy win, this one's already in the bag?
I don't think anybody's thinking that. I mean, I was a little surprised by the spreads that have come out over the course of the last couple of days here, just because I think we know what these matchups are. I mean, before the Ravens and Steelers faced off in Baltimore, there was no game that was decided by double digits or even less than that in the last however many matchups it was. So opening up at almost 10, I think, on even some sports books, that to me is a little rich. Like, I get that Pittsburgh is reeling right now. Baltimore is playing their best football of the season, but there's always that element of you throw the records out the window, you throw how good you're playing out the window, and then on top of that, you add playoff football to that equation. And that the word I keep coming back to is that uncertainty, because both defenses are really good. I'd say Baltimore's offense right now is in a better spot than Pittsburgh's, but at the end of the day, these are two teams that, like, you know everything about them on both sides, and that can just create so much chaos, in my opinion.
Let's rewind to about a month back when these two teams last faced off. The Steelers had won 8 of 9 against the Ravens. They head to Baltimore in a critical matchup in which Steelers could have won the AFC North. They lose that game. While watching that game, what did you glean? What, did it feel like the Ravens kind of got that Steelers monkey off of their backs finally in that contest?
It felt like something that everybody in Baltimore had been waiting on for so long. And before that game, the whole conversation was, well, you talk about it as a rivalry, but it's not really a rivalry when the team just beats you over and over and over again. So everybody in Baltimore just felt like it needed to happen. And Baltimore talked a big game leading up to it. They're like, we know the record. We're going to get this thing right. It's not acceptable the way it's gone. And they ended up doing it. Now, I think that the big thing was they got a big momentum play early from Ardarius Washington. I have no idea what Russell Wilson was thinking, trying to bulldoze him over. But that gave the Ravens the momentum. I mean, Pittsburgh goes up 14-7 if Russ just even slides or tries to juke him out. And from that point on, Baltimore really took over that game. And in the first battle, I think that Baltimore understood that it was a rivalry too. And like, hey, Steelers have really beat up on us recently. And then the Derrick Henry fumble happens on the second play of the game, first play of the game. And that kind of shifts the momentum towards Pittsburgh. So this game, this series between these two teams really feels like it's been momentum based. And in the playoffs, that amplifies by 10. So Baltimore, I think it feels good for them to not have to worry about, the Steelers have beaten us all this many times. You can kind of put that behind you and just focus on what's ahead now.
Yeah, I think Steelers fans who are listening or Ravens fans who are listening or watching should be well aware and remember that that score was not indicative of that game a month ago. You're right. If Russ scores there or if they ultimately get in to make it 14-7 and that pick six, obviously, I mean, Steelers could potentially go in for the tie late in that game. And then, after that, it got out of hand. We're hanging with Kevin Oestreicher, Locked On Ravens podcast. I just got one more thing before I throw it over to Jordan. We talked about Steelers and Ravens generally playing close games. Close race right now, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen MVP race. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this. Even from a Pittsburgher, if I had a vote, I would vote Lamar Jackson personally. It doesn't feel like he's going to win, but that seems unfair to me, Kevin. Why is Josh Allen such a heavy favorite and Lamar? Is it voter fatigue? Is that what we're seeing?
I'd probably say a lot of it is that. And, I've never liked the idea of voter fatigue personally. My whole thing is if a guy deserves the award, they should get the award regardless of how many times they've won it. But look, Josh Allen's having an incredible season. I'm not trying to take away whatsoever from what he's been able to do this year. If Lamar wasn't having the season that he was having, Josh would be the runaway favorite. No doubt he might even win it unanimously at this point. But I think with Lamar, the argument that is being made for Josh is you have one more seed up on the Ravens, the Bills do, 2 versus 3. One more loss, technically. I know people are going to make the argument, 2 losses because Josh only played the 1 snap in the game. He got the handoff. The loss still goes on Josh's record. So whichever argument you want to talk about there, I get it from both sides. But that to me doesn't trump what we've seen from Lamar this season from a stats perspective, where he leads in every single category except for rushing touchdowns. I think that the head-to-head battle between them has just gotten completely swept under the rug and doesn't get talked about whatsoever. We remember last year in the MVP conversation, it was Lamar versus Brock Purdy, and everybody's like, okay, whoever wins that game is going to win the MVP. Head-to-head matters so much here. to the point where Lamar blew out the 49ers and no one talked about the MVP again, despite Lamar not having the stats. And I get it. Oh, look, well, stats didn't matter last year for Josh Allen threw almost 20 interceptions last season. First of all, he was never winning the award. And the Ravens were the best, most dominant regular season team we saw that season. That, to me, I think is the other part of it where the Bills weren't that. I mean, the Chiefs are ahead of them in the standings. So you talk about strength of schedule, which the Ravens beat every single playoff team in the AFC except for the Chiefs. Josh Allen, I believe, was 2-3 against playoff teams, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that for sure, so don't quote me on it. But I know that his record was not as good as Lamar's in that aspect. Josh has a case, but in my opinion, Lamar's is stronger, and I don't think we should just give the award to a guy because he doesn't have one. I think Josh will win MVPs in the future.
Yeah.
He's a great player. But this year, in my opinion, the award should go to Lamar.
Yeah. As a Steeler fan, I'd have to agree. Let's shift to Saturday's game. Zay Flowers' health. Do you think that he'll play?
I don't. I don't think he'll play. The injury looked nasty when it happened. Now, luckily, it didn't turn out to be as nasty, but kind of I guess it's not a short week for both teams because they both play on Saturday, so you get the regular amount of rest. But regardless, Harbaugh classifies it as day-to-day, clarified it wasn't season-ending, but all the reports coming out are that, going to be tough for him to make it back for this week in particular. Divisional round, if they advance, would be the more likely situation. So that's a tough blow. I mean, the Ravens had to play their starters because they hadn't wrapped up the division in week 18. It's part of what happens, and it's unfortunate because Zay's a really big part of what the Ravens do. But, long story short, I think Zay's probably going to miss this game. If he is active, it would remind me of Mark Andrews the past couple of times the Ravens were the 1 seed where he got injured late in the year or got injured and had to come back, and he clearly wasn't himself. I would maybe say if Zay's active, does he act as a decoy potentially? That might be it, where he doesn't necessarily, he's not full strength whatsoever, but maybe just the threat of him on the field throws Pittsburgh off. I don't know, but even if he's active, I don't expect him to be himself, but I'm not even going to think, I don't think he suits up at all.
Okay. What worries you the most from a Ravens perspective that the Steelers bring?
I would just probably say the physicality on defense. I mean, I think that the big thing for Lamar is, that's the defense that he's struggled the most against over the course of his career. And it's no secret about that. I think it probably felt good for him to have the game that he had, and the Ravens have the game that they had the last time these two teams faced off. But I think that obviously you have an incredible pass rushing rotation between TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, all those guys, obviously on the D-line, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward. I could go on and on about the playmakers Pittsburgh has on the defensive side of the ball. But the Ravens up front have sometimes struggled with these more physical defensive fronts, and that's what Pittsburgh has. You look back to their game against Kansas City with Chris Jones and all those guys, Philadelphia, who has just beasts upon beasts on that defensive line. Baltimore struggled. Pittsburgh, they have struggled to block some of those guys consistently. So I think the offensive line has played a lot better in Baltimore than I thought it would have, based off what we saw at least over the first 2 weeks of the season. I think Tyler Linderbaum's been incredible. They've gotten great production out of Roger Rosengarten. But one of my keys to this game is whichever offensive line plays better between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, I think that will be the team that comes out victorious. And both teams have super physical fronts. It's just going to be a matter of which team can handle it better.
Yeah. How much, if it does snow, we were talking about snow before you jumped on with us, play into the impact of the game?
I would say it's a decent amount. I mean, Lamar's very vocal that he doesn't like the cold. Now, I don't think he's going to be like that big of a deal to the point where he's not playing at all great whatsoever, but it certainly does play a factor. Now, I think honestly, it might probably favor the Ravens because now Derrick Henry is on the Ravens side, and that cold weather running Derrick Henry. I don't know about you guys, but I might just make some business decisions if I was out there.
Maybe not in the playoffs, but
playoffs, you got to put it all out on the line. But we have seen players that have made business decisions. Now, Pittsburgh has the guys up front to be able to stop a guy like Derrick Henry. I mean, even physicality from their secondary, like a Deshaun Elliott, who I know, former Raven, has been a very good tackler for them this season and has been one of their enforcers. So I would probably say snow would play a factor, but I would just expect more smash mouth. There we go. Physical AFC North football over the course of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lamar, Floridian, down where I'm at currently, pretty close, Hollywood, Florida, and I'm about 20 minutes
Ravens
away
have a
in
lot of
Fort
South Florida
Lauderdale.
guys for
A
sure.
lot of South Florida. A lot of people have a lot of South Florida guys with the talent coming out of here. Teddy Bridgewater just coached a high school team near me to a championship, and now he's backing up in Detroit. Pretty crazy stuff. I wanted to ask you about a potential X factor, Kevin. Maybe somebody that a casual Steelers fan might not know of on the Ravens side going into this game, who could really, potentially change the outcome or have a big impact.
I would probably say I'll give one on each side of the ball. Defensively, I'll go Travis Jones. I just think that on the defensive line, he's someone that doesn't have the name recognition of a Nnamdi Madubuike, Kyle Van Noy, any of those guys at Afe Owe. Jones is one of those guys that is a great run defender. He can push the pocket as a pass rusher as well. And if he can take advantage of the Pittsburgh interior offensive line and get to Russell Wilson, we know Russ can get out of the pocket and make things happen. Now, I know Lamar is the best at doing that, but Russ has that ability as well. So I would say Travis Jones is someone that I could see having a sack or two if all goes right for him. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I would probably go Justice Hill if he's back. It seems he'll be back, but I think everybody talks about Derrick Henry, and rightfully so. But Hill's been one of the biggest X factors on the team this season, both from a pass protection perspective. He's been electric with the football in his hands. The one play that Peyton Wilson had in the first game on Justice where he ripped the ball away from him, an incredible interception. I mean, Justice had that ball. Peyton just made a much better play. So it's him and his versatility that I think has really propelled this Ravens offense this season. He's been one of the main guys that have helped out. Now, again, not the name recognition of a Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, but one of the guys I think could make an impact if he's available.
I'm watching on Saturday, and I mentioned that you and I did some draft coverage together earlier this year. And Nate Wiggins, everybody was excited about him, and it seems like that was a great pick. He looks terrific. Brandon Stephens, maybe not so much. I hear Dan Orlovsky, as I'm watching this game, analyzing it and essentially just saying, throw it at Brandon Stephens. Just throw it at Brandon Stephens. That's what I would do. Tell us a little bit more about this guy. Is he's struggling mightily? Is that the case?
I would say he's struggling. It's been a lot. I would call it a very big downswing from what we saw from him last season. This was one of the Ravens' best defensive players last year, and the weakness that he has, and everybody talks about it and knows about it, he does not get his head around for the ball. He does not know how to track the ball. That's the big thing. And one of the things that George Pickens does really well, if you want to talk matchup perspective, is he flashes those late hands. And so if you're a defender and you're watching the wide receiver looking for a cue from them to get your head around, if a guy's flashing late hands as well as George Pickens does, you're not going to get that cue from him because he's just going to reach his arms out right as the ball is in the breadbasket, and Brandon Stephens is going to be looking around like, wait, when was the ball thrown? So the Ravens, the era of shadowing, the art of shadowing throughout the league is gone away. Revis Island seems like decades and decades and decades ago, and really it wasn't that long ago. We don't really see it. The Ravens line up their guys on different sides of the field, and if Pittsburgh wants to, they can use whatever matchups they want, whether it's Pickens, Calvin Austin, whatever it is, they can use that to their advantage. So the Ravens secondary, they've been incredible ever since they had that closed door open forum meeting after that Bengals game that actually started with the Pittsburgh game that they lost the first time around at Acrisure. So I would say if there is a weak link on that defense, it is Brandon Stephens. I think that is a very real thing. And it's tough because the Ravens aren't necessarily good on third down this season on defense, and penalties have been a big issue. Stephens has been a part of that. So there are ways that the Steelers can kind of slop up this game and force the Ravens defense to stay on the field. And one of those would be to throw Brandon Stephens.
I know it's still early in the week, but before we get you out of here, tell everyone where they can check out your stuff again. And also, if you could give us a prediction. Remember, you are on the Steelers Crazy podcast. I'm just kidding.
No 30-point blowout.
No, I'm not even going 10 points in this one. I mean, I again, the spreads that I've seen, I think this is going to come down. Maybe it'll come down to Chris Boswell versus Justin Tucker. I don't know how that would go. But I'm going to pick Baltimore for the sole reason that I just don't think Pittsburgh has the offensive firepower to keep up with the Ravens if it does go that way. And if I'm on the Steelers side of things, I don't know what's going on in that locker room. I don't know what's going on between Russell Wilson and George Pickens right now. I mean, Patrick Queen called out the defense. Cam Hayward has had some words. It's rough. And now the good thing about the playoffs, at least from the Steelers side of things, is that you can have the stretch that the Steelers just had and you can win the Super Bowl because it starts a whole new season. I mean, just for a Baltimore perspective on that, the Ravens, when they won the Super Bowl back in 2012, they went 1-3 in their final 4 games. They limped into the postseason. They fired their offensive coordinator. They changed up their offensive line in the last month before they went on that run, and they beat Andrew Luck's Colts, Peyton Manning's Broncos, Tom Brady's Patriots. Like, they went on a run, and they were terrible the last part of the regular season. So anything can happen, but I think defense versus defense, I would call it a wash. Both defenses are incredible. I think a key for this one is Pittsburgh is the best turnover defense in the league. You know, they're a top 10 scoring defense. They're top 10, top 5 in a lot of defensive categories. Baltimore's turned it around as well. But I just think that the Steelers' run game, Jaylen Warren has honestly carved up the Ravens in the games that he's played. I think Najee Harris has had moments, but it's honestly Jaylen Warren I think people are more worried about here in Baltimore. But it just comes down to Russ for me. And he's made mistakes this season, in both Baltimore games, the Cincinnati game where he didn't run out of bounds or throw the ball away, and that wastes 30 seconds. The first game against Baltimore, he throws that, but now Darnell Washington should have jumped for the ball, but he still throws that ball in the end zone, and Marlon Humphrey comes down with it. I mentioned the Ardarius Washington play. If Russ has a mistake or two in this game, and if the Ravens can force a Russ turnover or two, I think that changes the tides of things. Honestly, guys, it comes down to who wins the turnover battle. I just feel that for me. If the Steelers win it, I'd expect Pittsburgh to win. If the Ravens win it, I'd expect the Ravens to win. I just think offensive firepower is what it's going to come down to. So I would probably say if I had to give a score, Ravens 24, Steelers 20 is where I'll go with that. And you can find me over at Locked On Ravens. I host a daily Ravens podcast 5 days per week. We also do go live after every game. So if you do want the Ravens perspective, it'll be win or lose. Obviously no ties in the playoffs. Thankfully, I hate ties. So we're not doing that. Win or lose from a Ravens perspective, if you want to tune into that live, we have that as well. YouTube, anywhere you get your audio podcast, we're available for you. I do write over at the Ravens Wire as well. Do some work over at Bleacher Report, as Mike alluded to over there. And then I also do some work at the Ryan Ripken Show, talking baseball, football, the whole 9 yards over there.
Hey, well, we really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck. May the best friends today, foes Saturday. Sunday, we're friends again. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Kevin.
Yeah, good luck, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
All right, appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too.
So close game. I mean, a 10-point spread from Vegas, but he's obviously on the pulse of Baltimore sports.
Yeah.
And, taking in kind of what fans are thinking over there and other analysts. And it doesn't sound like a lot of people in Baltimore are confident this is just going to be an ass kicking, right? It sounds like there's a little bit of, hey, it's Ravens Steelers, anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same exact way. I honestly think that the Steelers are going to win, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Steelers fan. I'm literally saying that because I just feel like they're due for a win, and what better way than the playoffs? So hopefully it comes true.
They deserve Baltimore. They deserve this game, right? This is what they had a chance to win the AFC North. Probably should have put it away. You have to win, one of your last 4, basically.
Yeah.
And, you had a chance to play the Texans, had a chance, to potentially
win the AFC North.
Get a matchup that they wanted. No, that's not how this works. You got to beat the best teams to win a Super Bowl. So this is what they deserve. Prove your mettle right away. I didn't need to see a 20-17 win over the Texans, and then everybody's still saying, well, are they good? Have they turned the corner? The same questions would still be there. You go out and you beat the Ravens on their home field. Yeah, you've answered a lot of questions, and now you're 1-0. You're 1-0. Nobody's thinking about the last 4.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to say the least. So we'll see. But
I'm not giving a prediction yet. Maybe we'll catch you later in the week. I'm going back and forth. I thought Steelers. Now I'm starting.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout whatsoever.
These teams know each other too well.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that the Steelers' defense is Lamar's kryptonite. Obviously, he got the monkey off of his back this season, but I really, truly do think that, this Steeler team right after before this 4-game skid, I mean, I was I was saying AFC Championship or bust.
You weren't the only one. I mean,
at this point, I'm just like, I'm looking for something. I'm still looking for something. All these weeks, a month later, we're looking for something.
They've shown it, right? This isn't like a team that
defense looks good against the Bengals.
Well, they've beat good teams this year, right? That's what a lot of people forget. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Broncos. They won in Washington at the Commanders. Those are 4 good playoff teams right there. They beat the Bengals. They killed them in their house. And the Bengals, I think a lot of people right now would say are a pretty damn good team if they would have snuck in the playoffs, winning their last 4 games. So they beat some really good teams this year. So they're capable. They can do it, right? Yeah. It's just, can they find the rhythm again? And then can they play with the Baltimores, the Kansas Cities, who have kicked their butt recently?
Guess we'll find out. Hey, again, just want to thank everyone for tuning in and engaging with our content. We do this for yins. As always, it's Jay York Football, Mic'd Up Sports 1. Stay crazy. Make sure you subscribe. Juliana.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.